Hello, I'm Greg Nelson. I'm the owner of Nelson Construction and Renovations, and this is the first video that we're doing about our design build service. So design build is essentially when a builder is helping to price things in simple terms. It's called value engineering, but a builder is working on pricing things as it's being designed. So as the foundation and the type of structure that's being built is being drawn, you have an interaction with the construction team, with that builder, that actually starts to price things as it goes along. Sometimes it's good to have a little bit of transparency with your builder or the design build firm that you're working with, so that they know, okay, so a $500,000 budget is going to be palatable. And then that design build firm, if they're doing their job correctly, they will come at or below that at the end of the planning process. They will say, hey, this job is going to be approximately $480,000 to $550,000, and then they've done their job right. So what design build is it is essentially a construction company, and they are going to build the project, but they're also going to design the project. Now, you might ask, what is the other option available? That would be, you're kind of at a fork in the road at that point. If you want to build a new house or do a project of some type, you're at a fork in the road. You can either go to an architect directly, or you can go to a design build firm. Those are really your two options, unless you're already an architect yourself or something. But there's pros and cons to both. And some people think that if you go to a design build firm and you pay them money to help design the project, that you're locked in with that builder to use them for the build. Some companies do operate like that, and they require that, and you have to sign stuff, and you go in and they have to do the build, and they work with you within a budget, and they still do it, but you're kind of locked in. Most companies, they don't lock you in to use them as the builder. We do not. Nelson Construction, essentially, we have our design build processes set up in segments, and we do not lock the client in to use us as the builder. So your pros and cons, going with an architect to do your design, this is gonna actually cover 2 points at the same time, because the reason that we got into design build in the first place, which I believe was about 6 or 7 years ago, was mainly because we would have clients coming into our office. Their plans are all rolled up and done, full set of construction plans. And they were begging us to do the job. Some of them already had a check ready to give us a deposit. And they would come in and they would say, hey, we're gonna do this project. It's a $350,000 remodel or an addition for a master bedroom and some stuff. And we would say, okay, and we would take their plans and we would estimate it, and it would take the better part of 8 to 10 hours or whatever man hours it takes to estimate the job. It's a lengthy process, and then we've come to the end of it, and it's a $500,000 job. So what you have is you have these architects, and they're basically drawing people out of their budgets. So the thing is that what I've observed in 20 years of doing this on my own, and previous to that, almost 15 years working for other companies, construction companies, what I've observed is that the architects, they really don't know what things cost. They're not working with the trade mechanics. They're not working with subcontractors. They don't know what things cost. When you're working with a builder to design build a project, the builder's now he's now running point on the design. That means the architect, the engineer, any other design professionals that might need to be involved. Let's say you have a really fancy film room or a media room, and you want to have a sound engineer involved or something like that. All those planning people would be now under the general contractor, and general contractor is running point, and he's telling them what he wants them to draw, right? And he's pricing it, and he knows what things are cost impacting, and he knows his client because he's had this transparent conversation about budget, and he's gonna do everything he can to try to design this thing around that budget. I mean, at the end of the day, if we design our client out of their budget, then we're shooting our own self in the foot because now we don't have a construction project at the end of it. The standpoint of an architect, when a client comes, if you come to an architect and you say, I want to build this house, I want to build, say, a FEMA compliant house or whatever, the architect's going to salute and he's going to say, that's great, I'll build you that house, show me some pictures. Or they might come up with some ideas and help you design and come up with some nice designs and stuff like that. And that's totally cool. And they could do that for you. But to the architect, you're a one-time client. They're going to draw those drawings and they're done and they're out of there. Then you're going to go and you're going to take those drawings, you're going to go deal cards to 4 or 5 different contractors and you're going to get prices, and they're probably going to be all over the place. That's probably subject for another video on how contractors how they apply their direct job and indirect job overheads and things like that, and why things get to be so different. But at the end of the day, if you got a good set of architectural plans, you should get relatively uniform bids, but most of the time they're going to be, outside of whatever the budget was in your mind for the project, or what you had set aside for that project. So the solution really is to go to a design build firm who's going to kind of hold the governor on things and make sure it doesn't get out of control. And I will be honest, in many cases, we've even been slapping the hands on our clients sometimes. They say, hey, we want a $500,000 budget. And next thing you know, they're picking the $3,800 brass faucet for the kitchen. It's like, whoa. But at least at the end of the day, a design build professional, what they're actually doing, if they're doing it right, is we're giving you all the information so you can make the decision. At the end of the day, if you want a $3,800 brass faucet in the kitchen, and you want to splurge on it and make it really super awesome in the kitchen because that's where you hang out all the time, then do it. But you're doing it knowing that you're increasing the budget because these types of faucets cost this much. Or a good example would be like windows, for example. Somebody says, well, I want Pella windows. Well, Pella windows are nice and that's great, but there's also a million other kinds of windows that are just as good. And newsflash, a hurricane rated window, they're all the same. They all get tested with a machine that shoots a 2x4 at them at 150 miles an hour, and it's not going to break the glass. They have to meet or exceed Miami-Dade County wind code, and a hurricane window is a strong unit. But do you want the Architectural Series Pella one with the special mutton pattern? Okay, that's an $80,000 window package maybe. But maybe you don't care and you just want an impact window and white vinyl or something else a little less is okay. Well, design build professional is going to give you lots of information to explain to you, well, here's an impact window, and by the way, we can get the whole window package for $25,000. And that's a good example of value engineering, right? It's us giving you information. It's like, yeah, maybe this other one looks architecturally a lot more fancy, and maybe that's what you want, but that's what that's going to cost from that vendor, and here's what that's going to cost from this vendor. That's, in a nutshell, that's value engineering. That is not something that an architect's going to do, ever. You don't actually need an architect to be involved with a project to pull a permit. The only thing that the municipality is going to need is they're going to need a seal from an engineer, a structural engineer. That's the only thing they need. Structural engineer licensed in the state of Florida if we're building in Florida. I'm not trying to say anything bad about architects. They definitely have their place, 100%. I've worked with some genius architects, and at the end of the day, they have their place. And if you want to build an architectural masterpiece and we want to put it in for an award, and you want to really make this thing sing, I would recommend we hire an architect, but I would still recommend you go with a design build firm who's controlling that architect, because they can get out of hand budget-wise. And to this day, I've never had anybody come in our office and just say, hey, open checkbook, whatever it costs, I don't care. I've worked with wealthy business owners, celebrities, blue collar workers, people that got an inheritance and saved up for their whole life, the whole spectrum. Everybody that we've ever worked with always wants the best bang for their buck, like one for one. Everybody wants, they want the project to sing. They want to be tap dancing. They want it to be a nice place. It's their castle where they're coming to come home at night and they're going to be with their family. But they also don't want to spend a whole lot of money. So yes, you could go to an architect, you could get your plans done, you could go ahead and get it to different GCs and have them give you prices. And that works, and that is a workable system. But design build is also a lot more workable as far as steering it and controlling that budget before you go in. On our design build service, the way we do it, you own the plans. That's another thing too, is that some design build firms, they don't give you the plans when they're done. They kind of hold them hostage, for lack of a better way to say it. You know, they've got these CAD files, they've got these designs that they've done with you and worked out, and you know, you kind of have to sign the construction contract in order to actually have them and get the copies of them. So on Nelson Construction's design build service, we haven't really tried to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to do something completely new, but one thing we have done is we've divided it into checkpoints, right? So we have 4 engineers that we work with regularly, and we're a regular customer for the engineers, so we do get kind of better service from them. We are not a licensed architect. I can't say that we do architecture, but I don't need a license to buy AutoCAD and use AutoCAD and do schematic designs, which at the end of the day is a large part of what an architect does. Most design build firms, they do a lot of drafting in-house to create the initial design, the floor plan, the elevation, this sort of thing. We don't try to sell the whole package all the way through to permit drawings. We keep it at checkpoints. And we have 3 basic checkpoints. Actually 2, the first 2 main sections are in the first one we sell, and then the last one is the engineering of the permit drawings. I don't really know how anybody can price doing a full set of construction drawings if the design's not done yet. If you don't know the final square footage or the type of structure that you're gonna build, there's no way for me to get a price from my engineer. So what we do is we sell what we call the schematic phase. The schematic phase is basically 2 main parts, maybe 3. There's a lot of steps in it, but there's kind of 3 main segments. The first part's gonna be where we do like a simple, what we call a feasibility study. We call it kind of a soft feasibility study. We don't want to take anybody's money to do something if it's not going to be allowed. Somebody might want to build an ADU. Somebody might want to, add on a whole bunch of square footage on their house. So what we do is we check, we take your property survey, we check setbacks. We make sure that what we're proposing to do wouldn't encroach within those setbacks. We find out what those setbacks are. Maybe they're a little bit different. A lot of setbacks on the sides are the same, and the front and the back, if you have a corner lot, they're going to be a little different. You've got different numbers on your setbacks, so we make sure that that's okay. Maybe somebody wants to elevate, add a second floor or whatever. We check out height restrictions. We check out, what zone are you in? Are you zone AE? Are you in zone X? Are we regulated by the 50% rule? Do we have to start worrying about a FEMA permit? Do we need an appraisal to check our depreciated costs? There's a whole bunch of stuff that we can really easily check to make sure, hey, we're not going to do 20 hours of drafting time when we can't even build what we're proposing to build on the property. We're also going to check maybe city ordinances, if there's any utility easements, like things like this. This is just like a simple, quick, cursory feasibility check. We have our little checklists and we go through the whole thing to make sure everything's A-okay before we move to the next step. Assuming that's good, then we move into the schematic phase. The schematic phase is pretty simple. We have 2 main drafters in our office, Yocasta and John V. And these girls are like little space planning ninjas on the AutoCAD. There's usually an initial meeting in the studio with the designer. If you've got a house account or a Pinterest account, or if you've got some pictures or ideas of what it is you want to build or styles that you like, it's good to have that. If you don't have any idea, that's fine. But we have a list of questions. We get down to brass tacks, and we're going to get up and personal. We're going to want to know, okay, good. So when my wife drives into the garage, does she want to walk the groceries up the stairs, or do we want an elevator? Or I wake up at 7:30 in the morning and I want my water hot, and I want a recirculating hot water line on the hot water heater. Or we have, huge family get-togethers and we revolve around the kitchen. We want an open floor plan. Like, we want to know stuff like this. So we're going to get all this initial information. This is called programming data. So we're going to get all this data. It goes into the file. We're going to find out, different strokes for different folks. Some people want a massive window view from the master bedroom, and some people want the film room. Some people want the rec room, or they need an office if they're working from home. So once we have all this data, and some families are having more kids, or they're having grandkids come over, or in-laws, or whatever, then we can kind of come together with some square footage, and we have this programming data compiled, and we can kind of start working on your initial schematic floor plan. So then we do your initial schematic floor plan, and that's quite a bit of work, but it's essentially a line drawing, it's dimensioned, it's all to scale on AutoCAD. And the file that we're creating, really later on in the process, all of this gets used by the structural engineer, and everything comes from this initial schematic plan that we do. So, your foundation plans, your wall sections, your roof framing, your electrical plans, all your waterproofing details, all of these things, we don't even need to talk about it yet, because it all comes off this schematic. The schematic can be changed relatively easily. You can move walls around, you can look at it from a bird's eye view and go, you know what? I think we should have the kitchen over here. We'd rather spend some time in the kitchen in the dining room and look at the view that way or something. So we usually put 3 revisions into our initial design build schematic phase, but we usually nail it within the second revision, and it's a done deal. Now at that point in our schematic phase, we're also going to talk about what we kind of want the house to look like from the outside, and maybe some simple finishes, and start getting this figured out. Do I want a Key West bungalow? Do I want contemporary modern? Do I want a modern farmhouse? Do I want country cottage? Do I want to go green on green, green and green design, or a craftsman or something like this? And then we can start putting in some of these elements, and we'll do a simple exterior or side elevation. Usually we just do a front elevation of the house with the schematic floor plan of the house. Your stairs, your hallways, how you get in, everyone. And we look at all the stuff, the code stuff. You can't have a doorway within a certain amount of room from an electrical panel, and hallways should be this big, and your stair landing. And so we know all this stuff. You're looking at this floor plan, and it's really easy to visualize what it is you're getting. And you can look at it, and then you can make a conscious decision on, oh yeah, the kitchen isn't going to be good there. It's going to be good over here. And that's why the schematic phase is really important. To spend a little bit of extra time getting that so that everybody's tap dancing, that's the best way to go, because once we move into the engineering section, we have to pay in full for the engineering. We go on their waiting list, and then construction drawings come back. So we try to get this thing totally nailed out. So this is all still within this first section of our design build process. There's another section in the design build process, this first section of our design build process. We basically do what we call a conflict analysis with our production team. My project coordinator, my production manager, my project manager, my superintendent, maybe one of the superintendents if they're available, my whole logistics team, we're gonna look into this thing. We're gonna look for any conflicts on means and methods. So let's just say the client wants to do a block house with an elevated pool or something like that. We're gonna look at, is there any way we could do this for less expensive, for less money? As a service, this is the part of it where now we're getting into our value engineering. We kind of do a conflict analysis, and we do some value engineering, and we let some of the execution personnel, the people who are going to end up doing the work or that do the work, including sometimes we even fish it out to some of our subs. But we're doing kind of a cursory view of this at this point, because we don't have construction drawings yet. We're doing schematics, we're doing some basic pricing. Yocasta, our director of design, and John B are also going to be creating an allowance list. An allowance list is basically a list of all your finish selections. I talked about in one of the other videos about how our cost per square foot can be dictated based on the finishes that the client picks. So this is really important because, you might want marble floors, a marble tile installed throughout the house, and maybe those are $18 to $25 a square foot, but maybe we can find some nice porcelain with a square rectified edge that's white or cream colored that looks like the marble, and it's $7 a square foot. That's a massive savings if you got a 4,000 square foot house or even 3,000 square foot house. It's a huge savings. This is value engineering. This is us saying, hey, you could do this also and still make it look nice, but maybe you still want the marble, and that's okay, but here's what those are gonna cost. So those will go on the allowances. Your plumbing fixtures, your electrical fixtures, your countertops, your cabinets, all that sort of thing. Maybe they're not fully selected down to, like, we want model number 3291 Kohler toilet, But we know that we want a toilet that's within the range of $400 to $600, not the $4,000 one. That's a wall hung Toto or something like that. So at least we're in this design process. We're doing some value engineering on what different things cost. We've got a list of all the different toilet. We've done all of our material quantity takeoffs, which are basically where we measure the square footage of. Okay, you got 42 square foot of tile going in the stand-up shower on the second floor. You've got 80 square feet of tile going into the stand-up shower walls. You've got 3,280 square feet of engineered wood flooring throughout the house. Like, all these takeoffs are done. They're put into the box, and you've got 4 toilets and 6 sinks or whatever it might be. And then we put placeholders for these based on what we're getting feedback from the client while we're doing the design build process. So this allowance list is created. Some people call it a selections list, or we call it an allowance list because they're not finally selected yet. All this is done. The conflict analysis, some simple value engineering is done. For instance, another simple one on value engineering would be like roofing. We had a client, they were adamant that they wanted the metal roof on their house. It's a great roof. We're out on the water. We had to use this roofing called Galvalume. It's a $48,000 roof. It's a big house, $48,000 roof. I explained to the client that you'd have to walk 2 blocks away and look up in order to see the nice metal roof. Given the warranty on a metal roof is going to last a lot longer than, say, architectural shingles or something, asphaltic shingles, or, a cement tile roof or a barrel tile roof. It's going to last a lot longer, but you could go architectural shingles and it's $18,000 and not way over 40. That was a point where they went, yeah, let's just do the architectural shingles. It's a 15 to 18 year warranty or whatever. But value engineering is really important because you got a builder, you've got myself and my team, or basically going over what are the options. Not everybody knows what kind of roof options you have. You've got metal on the top tier, and you've got 3-tab shingles on the lowest. That's something you'd put on a trailer home. And then you got everything in between. You got clay tile, barrel tile. You got barrel tile made out of concrete. You got flat tile made out of concrete. Then you go down to architectural shingles, and then from there. And then there's all sorts of commercial roof systems that you can use on flat roofs. And they all have pricing associated with it. They all meet code. You can put them on your house, but some of them are a hell of a lot better than the cheaper ones. And the design build guy has to be able to give you this information so you can make the decision. So all of these things, once you say, okay, well, we're good with let's say the client says, well, we're good with the architectural shingle. Then we would put a placeholder on the allowance list for architectural shingle. Within that category of architectural shingle, you've still got many different price options and design options of different colors and granules and rock color, different patterns and all sorts of stuff. And they're all different prices, but they're still within this bracket. So we would put a bracket on there. So just to summarize, we've done a feasibility study, we've done a schematic design, we've done a simple elevation, we've done some conflict analysis, we've done some value engineering on the large cost impacting aspects of the project, roofing, windows, design, build style, all this kind of thing. And we've got a list of all your fixtures and finishes with placeholders for those. At the end of that, the deliverable on our first phase of our design build service is you're going to have, the end product is you're going to own the design. The plans are yours. You're going to own the elevation. With feasibility studies done, you're going to know that it can be built on that site and that the city will approve a permit for it. They still have to do the construction review, but that's separate. First, we want to know that they'll allow that building to be there, and you're not going to waste your money, on an engineer to draw all this stuff and then find out you can't do it later. So you'll know you can do that. You'll have these simple schematics done, and you'll also have a pretty good idea within about 10 to 15% of what that job is going to cost. And we're usually right in the middle. If we do our job right, by the time we finish with the last phase, which is the second phase, then we're going to be at or below that number, aside from any wild changes that might happen in the middle. So the second phase of the design build process is the engineering phase. So it's very important to make sure that you're happy with the floor plan and everything on the first phase of the schematic phase of our design build process. And then you're going to give us a thumbs up It's okay, good, we love it. We're tap dancing, we're ready to go. At that point, we're gonna take that and we're gonna give it to 4 of our engineers. We're gonna let them fight and arm wrestle over doing the job. We're gonna take the best price and we're gonna send you a cost to do it. We're gonna put a fee on top of that. We usually do 8 to 10% depending on the type of job that it is. That our fee is on top of the cost of the engineering. We pay the engineer and we go on a waiting list. It's usually about 5 to 6 weeks to get our final plans done. And in the process of getting that, we usually get what's called bid docs. Those are the initial plans that are done. They're not quite ready for permit, but they're coming back from our engineer. And our estimator is now doing the final estimating. He's also handing them out to a lot of our trade mechanics. We have a lot of trade partners that work for us regularly, and then we have a section of guys that we try out. We try them on small projects and see how they do. And we have a lot of guys that we've been working with for over 15 years. We've been in business for 20 years. We've got a lot of really good subs. Our shell guys that do all of our concrete and our masonry and our wood framing crews and our electrical. We have like 5 electricians and several plumbers. We give them the plans and they get us their budget numbers. We get budget numbers from these guys and we can build a budget pretty fast. And if we did our job right at the first stage, we're usually gonna be right in the sweet spot. And then at the end of that, the project, the end product of the last phase is you now have a set of drawings that are completely sealed by an engineer. They match the design. They're ready to go in for a permit, and you're going to have our contract to do the construction work. If you're working with a design build firm, the design builder is going to be talking shop with the engineer. In most cases, we tell our engineer what we want him to draw because we know how things need to get built. There's definitely situations where I'm going to rely on the engineer to do his load calculations, and there's situations where somebody might want something cantilevered quite a ways, and I'm going to just defer to the engineer to let him do his thing. But in most cases, we're going to be talking shop with the engineer. We're going to be letting him know how our client wants it built. We're working for the client. We're dictating what's being done. Obviously, they're gonna, it's their license on the line. The way that it works too, by the way, with an engineer, if a builder comes and builds something, the way that the plans show that it's supposed to be built, and the city is coming and inspecting to make sure that the builder is building it per the engineered plans, at the end of the day, if the house falls over, everyone's looking at the engineer, as long as they can verify that the builder built it exactly per the engineering. So that's kind of how that relationship works. So the engineer definitely has his place as far as, being able to put his foot down and say, nope, we've got to make the beam this big because it's spanning a lot further or what have you. And that's totally fine. But the engineers that we work with, we've executed so many of their drawings and so many of their structural designs, and everything's gone really smoothly. There's definitely a working relationship there that you only get over time. With all the recent storms and people building new houses and everything, there's definitely, I would say, a bottleneck happening with engineers. But the good thing is that our engineers know that when the dust settles, we're still going to be here giving them regular work, and we're not a one-time client. So there is a benefit to working with somebody like that. So again, this was a general overview of how we do our design build process at Nelson Construction. If you want to get a free consultation and come in and talk with myself or our project coordinator, Matt, feel free to call us up and schedule an appointment. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.